Again, and I'm the first one to admit it, I'm not a good fit for everybody. We specialize in financial planning. If somebody's coming to me and they just want investment management, I'm not going to be a good fit. Hello, this is Mark Silverman, managing member and founder of Silverman & Associates, and I'm also a certified financial planner professional. I want to welcome you to the Saving With Silverman podcast. I'm glad you're here. Each week, we'll discuss different financial planning topics because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
You're listening to Saving with Silverman with the one and only Mark Silverman, certified financial planner professional, the founder and the managing member at Silverman & Associates in Tucson. If you'd like to go to the website, here it is, savingwithsilverman.com. That is savingwithsilverman.com. And the most immediate information I can give you, the quickest thing for you to do is just make this phone call or send a text to 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. You can arrange to have a 20-minute complimentary introductory phone call with Mark Silverman. Then that might lead to a get-together in his office. That's totally up to you. But the number to call, again, is 520-333-7601. And again, if you're more comfortable just sending a text, please feel free to do that. Working with the right advisor is something that is very important. And of course, I think you ought to come work with Mark Silverman, but let's talk about some other aspects of all that. It seems that a lot of folks just don't know exactly what they should be getting from their financial advisor. So it's difficult for them to know if their advisor is actually doing a good job for them or if they're just wasting their time. And my question to you, Mark, is give us some context, if you would, to set our expectations in the right place for what kind of services we should be getting from a financial advisor.
Well, I have pretty high expectations, and I think my clients do as well. So I try to make sure that all their needs are taken care of. And that means that if we don't have the answer, we go out and find that answer for our clients. It's all about relationships. So you've got to be able to get along. If you're butting heads with your advisor, or it's somebody that you don't feel comfortable discussing your personal situation with, that's not going to be a very good relationship for you. You need somebody that's going to listen. So your advisor should be doing more listening than talking. Hopefully they're asking a lot of questions, trying to understand your situation rather than just give me your statement. I'm going to sell you some investments and here's why. There's more to it than that. I think most people, rather than just wanting to be told what their investments are, they want to know, when should they take Social Security? Are they going to be okay retiring? Are they going to have enough in retirement? What's their risk tolerance? How should the diversification look like? What should the asset mix look like? Do they need long-term care? What's the long-term care strategy? What's the best tax strategies out there to minimize taxes? Not saying avoid taxes, but minimize taxes. How does their estate plan look? Are things set up the way that they want their assets to be dispersed? Do they have charitable legacy things that they need taken care of? There's a lot of things that I think a good advisor is going to accomplish. I'm a little bit biased. I'm a CFP, certified financial planner. And so we cover a lot of different areas. If it were me, I would only work with a CFP. That doesn't mean if your advisor is not a CFP, they're a bad advisor. They're just not trained and don't have the knowledge that somebody that does have a CFP that's been vetted does. And if you're not working with a CFP, a good question is, why aren't you, ask that him or her, why aren't you a CFP? And I don't think there's a good answer why they're not. I think the only two answers are they're either working on it or they're going to be retiring soon and they just never bothered getting it. But if you're taking this industry seriously, I think you want to work with a CFP specifically. And somebody, it's not just that they're a CFP, but somebody that you feel comfortable with that can answer the type of questions and give you the answers that make sense to you. If they're speaking over your head and speaking in languages that you can't understand, it's not going to be a good relationship either.
Another thing about working with an advisor is, there are some good advisors out there to be sure, but there are some other advisors who aren't necessarily good communicators. And one thing that I know Mark Silverman does, after having known him for a long time, is he explains everything very clearly, very transparent. And Mark is actually a good educator. So, he's going to explain things. And when you walk out of his office, you're going to have a good understanding of what kind of investments you're in, what kind of a plan that you have, and all that sort of thing. Are there any warning signs specifically to indicate that you should definitely be looking for a new advisor or another advisor?
Sure. I think there's a couple different warning signs. Go with your gut. If your gut's telling you something doesn't make sense, get a second opinion. or a third opinion or fourth opinion, whatever it might be. I think if somebody avoids questions, I think, there's some questions that are uncomfortable for advisors to answer, but they shouldn't avoid those questions. If somebody asks me a question, I will answer that question to the best of my ability. If I don't know the answer, I'll go out and find that answer and get back to them. But, most of the questions that we have are similar questions we get from a lot of people. And I'm happy to, like you mentioned, I'm a fiduciary, so I have to be fully transparent. With that being said, that term fiduciary gets thrown around a lot, specifically on this station. I'm not going to mention names, but when somebody's telling you they're a fiduciary, when they're looking out for your best interest, and in the same breath offering you a 10% annuity, how could they recommend a product to you without knowing your situation? Mm-hmm. That's the exact opposite of what a fiduciary is. So again, not going to mention names. I think we all know who we're talking about, but I think that's something you should definitely be cautious of, making sure that somebody's addressing your concerns and answering your questions and not beating around the bush with certain things.
Certainly a good point, Mark. Thank you very, very much for that. There are cases where an advisor has done a great job over the years, admittedly, but at some point when your stages of life change, their specialty may no longer be a fit for the client. When might that apply?
If you're working with an advisor when you're younger and they're helping you save and that sort of thing, maybe retirement planning is not their thing. Again, and I'm the first one to admit it, I'm not a good fit for everybody. We specialize in financial planning. If somebody's coming to me and they just want investment management, I'm not going to be a good fit. If they don't want to sit down and spend the time with us to help us understand their situation for their benefit so we can make the right recommendations, which I have a fiduciary responsibility to do, I don't cut corners. If somebody just says, I want, to work with you and I'm working with this other advisor here, I want to compare and see who does better, I will not take on that relationship. And the reason being is I can't do a good job. It's like asking somebody to watch your kids when they're in somebody else's backyard. You can't do it. So if you're having 2 different advisors or 3 advisors working for you, it's really, really a disservice. And I'm not saying that there are people that won't do that for you, but I'm saying the people that will take on those relationships are going to be more desperate than somebody like myself, to be quite honest with you, because I can't do a good job if I don't know what somebody else is doing. And when we see everything, then we can do a good job for you. But if we don't know what somebody else is doing and we're trying to manage it on our end, it's not in your best interest. And I would stay away from something like that.
Sometimes people just stick with the wrong advisor for too long, for years and years, and maybe it's a case of this person was my father's advisor for all these years, and so I'm just going to stick with him because I know that they have my best interests at heart. What are some of the things that could go wrong when someone sticks with the wrong advisor for too long a period of time?
Well, time is of the essence, and a lot of bad advisors are helped by good markets. And what I mean by that is, if your accounts are going up and up, which they should have been over the last, 10, 11 years since we've had this bull market, but you haven't heard from your advisor, you're probably not unhappy because you haven't heard from them because you're making money. However, if they're doing the same job where you're not hearing from them and the market goes down, which again, they have no control over, now you're not happy because you're having bad service, bad communication. There should be communication along the way, whether the market's going up and the market's going down. And specifically when the market's going down is when I think clients need us the most, because we're really trying to help our clients get through these tough times and be a voice of reason so they don't make something that's going to hurt them, make a decision, a rash decision. And a lot of times people's biggest obstacle is not the market's going down, it's themselves making decisions at the wrong time and trying to time the market. We all know buy low, sell high. People do the exact opposite of what we know they're supposed to do. And that's just human nature. So, it's really being there for our clients when they need us and being there, in my opinion, on a regular basis, regular communication, at least once a year, if not more than that, depending on the relationship, and certainly through life transitions. If somebody has a death of a spouse, if somebody's looking at retiring, somebody comes into money, somebody has a big expense, they can't sleep at night because they're worried about their investments. Any of these type of things, we need to be there for our clients, and that's really what they're paying us for. It's not just for the markets or paying us to have the best rate of return. It's not about that, in my opinion.
You have said many times, if we're a good fit, if we're right for each other, that kind of thing. And, that's really great when the chemistry works out like that. But how can someone determine if the prospective advisor that they're interviewing has a philosophy and an approach that's actually a good fit for them?
Well, they have to sit down with those people and have a conversation. And I tell people, if people are interviewing us, sometimes they interview just us or sometimes they're meeting with other people. And I'll tell people, don't set a number of a meeting with 2 or 3 advisors. If you meet with 10 advisors, you're going to have 10 different opinions. And if none of those makes sense to you or you're comfortable with, keep going. Don't set a limit on how many meetings that you have until you find the right fit. And the only way you can do that is by talking to people and making sure and ask those tough questions and seeing how those people respond to your questions. And if they're not answering them in a way that's satisfactory to you, there's a problem, and you keep going and move on to the next one. Again, not everybody's a good fit. Personalities have to match. They should get both partners involved. If you're married, you and your spouse should be at all those meetings. If somebody's willing to meet with you without their partner, I would be cautious of that, because they can't do a good job, because especially in a community property state, this is a relationship business. And if you don't know both parties of the relationship, you're really doing a disservice. So, having those tough conversations and meeting with people and taking it to the next step. And if something doesn't seem right, it probably isn't. So go with your gut and, have those conversations with people. That's my advice.
The old piece of advice, if something just seems too good to be true, it probably is. And you need to make sure that you're getting what you think you're getting. And working with the right advisor is so darn important. And we've mentioned several times the introductory phone call, 20-minute phone conversation with no obligation and no cost for you. Mark, what kind of things do you talk about with that very first phone call?
Sure. It's the first step in our process. So we have a set out process that we do with each and every client, so nothing gets missed. So the first step, and we've been doing this for a long time, is what we call introductory call. And in that introductory call, you'll get to speak with me, and we will talk about anything that you want to talk about. I'll ask you some questions to get some more information about your situation, answer any questions that you have for me. I'll tell you a little bit about our process and philosophy. And if that makes sense, we're on the same page and it makes sense, we will move forward to set up what we call a get acquainted meeting here in the office. There's no cost or obligation for that. And so that's really the first step. And so we don't waste each other's time, but really, in order to really make this the most effective, we have this setup process that we do follow, and we encourage you to reach out for that step to see if we are a good fit. Maybe we aren't, maybe we are. Who knows? We don't know until we have that conversation. I will tell you this, though. I try to help everybody that I can. So even if we're not a good fit, I will do my best to point you in the right direction or give you some advice of what you should be doing based on your situation. Like I said, I'm not a fit for everybody, but for those that we are, we do an extremely good job, in my opinion. And so I want to be able to try to help as many people as I can. So the first step is really having this call.
You've been listening to the Saving with Silverman podcast. If you have any questions at all about your financial situation, please give Mark Silverman a call. Again, his number is 520-333-7601, or go online to savingwithsilverman.com. For Mark Silverman, I'm Ron Stutz. We'll see you next time on the Saving with Silverman podcast.
The Saving with Silverman podcast is brought to you by Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, based in Tucson, Arizona. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and everywhere you listen to shows. Subscribe to the show on your favorite app today and never miss an episode. Just search for Saving with Silverman to find us, or visit savingwithsilverman.com to listen to past episodes, to contact Mark, and to learn more about how to make smarter decisions with your money. All matters discussed on this show are for informational purposes only. Opinions expressed are solely those of Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, and staff. All topics covered are believed to be from reliable sources. However, Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, makes no representation as to its accuracy or completeness. This show shall in no way be construed as a solicitation to sell securities or investment advisory services to residents of any state other than Arizona or where otherwise permitted. Topics should be discussed with your individual advisor prior to implementation. Fee-based financial planning and investment advisory services offered through Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Arizona. Insurance products and services are offered through Silverman & Associates, an affiliated company.